Hollow Creek was the kind of town where nothing ever changed. A single main street ran through its center, lined with small shops, an old gas station, and a quiet cafe where everyone knew each other by name. It was peaceful, ordinary, and safe, or at least it had always seemed that way. That illusion shattered on the night of October 14, 1996. Emily Carter, a 25-year-old art teacher known for her kindness and gentle nature, was last seen leaving the Hollow Creek Cafe just before sunset. She waved goodbye to a friend, got into her blue sedan, and drove off toward her home at the edge of town. She never made it there. The next morning, when Emily didn't show up for work, her colleagues assumed she was sick. By noon, her parents began to worry. They called her phone repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail. When hours passed without any sign of her, the local sheriff organized a small search party. What they found later that evening changed everything. Emily's car was discovered abandoned on a dirt road about 5 miles from the cafe. The driver's side door was open. Her purse was still on the passenger seat, and the keys were still in the ignition. It looked like she had simply stepped out of the car and disappeared. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints leading away from the vehicle, and no fingerprints other than her own. The surrounding woods were searched for days by volunteers, dogs, and police officers, but they found nothing. No torn fabric, no personal items, not even a single clue that could explain what happened. The town's sense of safety quickly turned to unease. Rumors began to spread. Some said she had been kidnapped by a stranger passing through. Others believed she might have run away from a secret life no one knew about. But those who truly knew Emily rejected that idea. She was close to her family, loved her students, and had just been promoted at the community art center. There was no reason for her to leave. As the days turned into weeks, the once lively streets of Hollow Creek grew quiet. Parents stopped letting their children play outside. Every unfamiliar car was watched with suspicion. The mystery of Emily Carter's disappearance cast a dark shadow over the town, a reminder that even the safest places can hide the deepest secrets. 2 weeks after Emily Carter's disappearance, the people of Hollow Creek were still holding on to fading hope. Posters with her smiling face were taped to shop windows and telephone poles, her name whispered in every conversation at the cafe where she was last seen. Then on a cold November morning, that fragile hope shattered. A hunter named Carl Jenkins was walking through the dense forest just outside town when he noticed something strange near the base of an old oak tree. The ground looked freshly disturbed, the soil darker and softer than the rest. When he brushed away the leaves and dug a little deeper, his hand struck something solid, a small wooden box, carefully buried beneath the dirt. Inside the box were fragments of paper that had once been part of a sketchbook. The edges were torn and weathered, the ink smudged from moisture, but one thing was clear. These were Emily's drawings. Everyone in town recognized her delicate style, the soft pencil lines that gave life to her art. But these sketches were unlike anything she had ever shown before. They were dark, chaotic, and filled with haunting imagery. The pages showed twisted trees with hollow centers, faceless human figures standing among shadows, and strange symbols scrawled in the margins. Most disturbing of all were the sets of eyes, dozens of them staring from behind the trees, wide and watchful. Investigators examined every page, hoping to find a clue. At first they assumed the drawings were just art, expressions of emotion or imagination. But as they compared the images to maps of the area, they realized something alarming. The shapes and paths in her sketches matched the actual layout of the Hollow Creek forest almost perfectly. It was as if Emily had been mapping the woods before she vanished. Search teams returned to the forest, combing through every area that appeared in her drawings. For days they searched under fallen logs, through the thick underbrush and along the creek's edge. But there was nothing else, no signs of Emily, no tracks, no struggle. The box was the only trace she had left behind. When word of the discovery spread, the townspeople grew restless. Some said Emily had sensed something in those woods, something not meant to be seen. Others whispered that her art had become a warning, a silent message left for anyone who might follow. From that day on, few dared to walk into the Hollow Creek forest after dark. Months went by, and the case of Emily Carter began to fade from headlines, though it never left the minds of the people in Hollow Creek. The search teams had stopped, the posters had weathered and peeled, and the investigation sat in silence until another woman vanished. Her name was Sarah Dwyer, a 29-year-old instructor at the same community art center where Emily had worked. She disappeared one Friday night after leaving a small exhibition held at the center. Her car was found 2 days later in almost the exact same area where Emily's had been discovered, a lonely dirt road bordering the Hollow Creek forest. The doors were unlocked, her phone lay on the seat, and her belongings were untouched. The eerie similarity reignited the town's deepest fears. This time, however, there was a clue. Surveillance footage from a gas station captured Sarah just an hour before she went missing. She looked calm, refueling her car, checking her phone. But in one brief frame, when she turned toward the camera, a blurred figure could be seen standing a few feet behind her, motionless, almost blending into the darkness. The face was impossible to identify. When police enhanced the footage, the image distorted further, making the figure appear even less human. Some officers believed it was a camera glitch. Others weren't so sure. When investigators compared both disappearances, they noticed unsettling coincidences. Both victims were art teachers at the same community center. Both were last seen near the forest, and both had been known to take long walks through the woods to gather inspiration for their work. A theory began to form, that the person responsible wasn't a stranger passing through, but someone who had been quietly watching from within their own community. Detectives re-examined Emily's sketchbook fragments, searching for any pattern or connection to Sarah. What they found deepened the mystery. One of the forest sketches, thought to represent random trees, matched the exact spot where Sarah's car was later discovered. It was as if Emily had unknowingly predicted another disappearance. The case drew national attention, reporters flooding Hollow Creek in search of answers. But with no fingerprints, no evidence, and no suspects, the investigation stalled again. The people of Hollow Creek grew fearful of the woods that once brought them peace. It seemed as though something or someone had marked that place long before anyone understood its secrets. The case took a sudden and unexpected turn when investigators revisited Emily Carter's apartment nearly a year after her disappearance. Hidden inside a drawer beneath old art supplies, they found a small metal box containing an undeveloped film roll. It had likely gone unnoticed during earlier searches, dismissed as a forgotten piece of her work. When the film was developed, the photographs revealed a series of ordinary moments: students painting in class, shelves of art materials, and close-up shots of brushes and canvases. But one photograph stood out immediately. It showed Emily's classroom reflected in a window, and within that reflection stood the faint outline of a man outside, watching. His face was partially obscured, his body slightly blurred, as though he was captured in motion. No one could identify him. The discovery reignited public interest and brought new investigators to Hollow Creek. Experts analyzed the photo, enhancing it frame by frame. When they adjusted the lighting and contrast, the image grew stranger. The man's features appeared distorted, as if his face were melting into the reflection. Some claimed it was a camera defect. Others argued it was deliberate tampering. Forensic teams couldn't confirm either explanation. What unsettled everyone most was the timestamp, taken 3 days before Emily disappeared. The sheriff's office released the photo to the media, urging anyone who recognized the man to come forward. Dozens of calls poured in, but none led to anything solid. Every lead ended in confusion or contradiction. Then, weeks later, an anonymous envelope arrived at the police station. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 7 words typed neatly across the center. "You're looking in the wrong light." There were no fingerprints, no DNA, no return address. Detectives began to suspect that whoever was behind the disappearances was not only watching them, but playing with them. Some officers theorized that Emily and Sarah had both uncovered something hidden within the forest, something or someone that didn't want to be found. Others thought the letters and photographs were part of an elaborate hoax meant to mislead the investigation. But late one night, a deputy claimed he saw a figure standing at the edge of the woods near the search site. When he approached, the figure turned and seemed to dissolve into the trees. No one believed him at first, but in Hollow Creek, disbelief was slowly becoming fear. Years turned into decades, yet the mystery of Hollow Creek refused to fade. The once peaceful town became known for its chilling legend rather than its charm. The old cafe where Emily Carter was last seen shut down, its faded sign still hanging above the door like a relic from another life. Locals avoided the forest after dark, and newcomers were warned never to wander near the dirt road where the disappearances had occurred. Despite the passing years, the air around that place carried an uneasy stillness, as if the woods themselves were holding on to their secrets. In 2019, a group of documentary filmmakers arrived in Hollow Creek, determined to uncover the truth behind the long unsolved case. They brought advanced equipment, thermal scanners, drones, and high-resolution cameras to search the forest and recreate the victim's last known movements. Locals watched with curiosity, some hopeful that the truth would finally emerge, others convinced that disturbing the forest again was a mistake. For several nights, the crew recorded hours of footage with nothing unusual, but on the fifth night, something happened that none of them could explain. One of the crew members, while reviewing drone footage, noticed a faint figure standing deep among the trees. The shape was still, almost blending into the darkness, but the outline appeared unmistakably human. When enhanced, the image revealed what looked like a woman wearing clothes identical to those Emily Carter had been wearing the night she vanished. Moments later, the drone's camera froze, glitched, and powered down completely. The same happened to the handheld cameras nearby. When the devices were turned back on, all the files from that hour were gone except for one, a single blurry frame showing the silhouette surrounded by dim light. The footage was analyzed by experts, but no one could determine if it was real or a digital error. Paranormal investigators claimed it was evidence that Emily's spirit lingered in the forest, while skeptics dismissed it as coincidence. Still, those who had been there that night swore they felt something, a sudden drop in temperature, a sense of being watched, and faint whispers that seemed to echo between the trees. To this day, no trace of Emily or Sarah has ever been found. The Hollow Creek case remains one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries, an open wound in a town that time refuses to heal. And as night falls over the forest, some say the eyes from Emily's sketches still watch from the shadows, waiting for the next visitor who dares to look too closely.